Hi there guys, my name is Nick Braunton and I'm a random fish. I know this video will be a little bit out of normal. I know this is something that I don't know if I should be doing or shouldn't be doing, but at this point I have to say it. I have to do something here. I've, as you can tell by my t-shirt right now, I am a Star Wars fan. I am. I'm a massive Star Wars fan. I have done all sorts of cool things. I've enjoyed a lot of things. I've enjoyed a lot of characters and everything else going on. Something has been eating away at me. I don't know what it is. Possibly due to everyone's complaints over The Last Jedi and everything else that's going on. I feel like I need to do this video simply to not make myself feel better, but to ultimately make it as sort of a like a deterrent for all the negative stuff going on out there. Everyone loves to say things negative on the internet. Everyone loves to talk about how negative things are, how, you know, well, this movie was so wrong, or this franchise ruined my life, or, you know, George Lucas raped my childhood, potato potato. I'm not one against hating a movie. I'm not. If you didn't like the movie, you didn't like the movie. It's that simple. At the end of the day, we all have to live with it, we all have to move on, we're all adults. But I think what particularly annoyed me, or particularly pissed me off, is people who are sitting there saying things like they need to remove it from canon. Last Jedi. They need to remove Last Jedi from canon. Why? What would be the point? And I mean, everyone talks about the negatives of Last Jedi in particular, but the new trilogy is not exactly gaining. Ever since Disney took over, Star Wars has not been getting a whole lot of love from like the die-hard fans. Not because they don't like it, but because they're noticing more and more the changes that Disney has made to these movies. Now, I'm not setting out to change your minds about things. If you didn't like Last Jedi, fine, but you're gonna have to switch videos, because this is just gonna piss you off. It really is. This is just me attempting to make the people who enjoyed Last Jedi feel like there's someone else out there who likes Last Jedi too. If you liked it, you know what? I'm on your side. And I'm going to look at a few things. For example, we can look at one of the bigger points of a lot of people's whinging, Luke Skywalker, and what's happened to him, what he's become over the course of this movie. In Legends canon, the canon that Disney destroyed upon their takeover of Star Wars, I was angry. I was very angry with Disney, because I love Legends canon. I love the Luke Skywalker of that canon. I love the stories. I love the characters. Everything about it makes me happy. It makes me amazingly happy to read about these things in the comics, in the books, everything. It's awesome. But it's not as if these things are without idea, without merit. The idea that Disney took over and said, we're getting rid of that entire timeline and we're doing something new. This is not out of the ordinary. When other people buy properties, they change things. This is not about hurting someone, this is not about pissing someone off or whatever. This is literally about taking a property that you enjoy and you have to change it in order to include everyone else back into the fold. The books were fantastic. Do I think every Star Wars fan of the movies at least read all the Legends canon? No, they did not. There's no point in trying to get them to read them, because they won't. Especially if they're just fans of the Star Wars movies. It's just not going to help. And as a movie, these things need to stand on their own. Now, am I going to defend everything about Last Jedi or Force Awakens or anything like that? No. There are things that are wrong with these movies. There are some issues, but I'm not going to talk about those. Luke Skywalker in the Legends canon was very powerful. Some might say too powerful. he didn't have any glaring overt weakness. He did what was expected of him. When he started the new Jedi Order, he did it by changing the way the Jedi think. In other words, the Jedi in the prequels were all about the Jedi of old. Their entire focus was going, you need to commit yourself to the Force will be used for gaining knowledge, it'll be used for gaining wisdom, it'll be used for all these things, for defensive. They are selfless people, and eventually they give themselves to the Force, and they are taken into, they become one with the Force themselves. Dark side users end up using only their emotions, and they feel that emotion is what fuels them to become better, and what makes them stronger, and what allows them to become free. Hence, in each of their oaths, in both the Jedi Code and the Sith Code, they talk about the Force setting them free, but in very different concepts. They say in the Sith Code that by using the Force will set them free by breaking their chains. The Jedi are saying the Force will set them free by not allowing them to give in to these emotions, because emotions inherently do not help to the Jedi. That's how the Jedi think. Yet Luke, in this canon, in Legends canon, starts adopting more of the Grey Jedi Code. Now, if you don't know what the Grey Jedi Code is, it is essentially saying that there is a balance in you. You have to allow for emotion as well as a serenity within as well. You have to make them work together in order to make this work. You can't just half-arse it. It doesn't work like that. And that's what he based the Jedi Temple on. That's what he based Yavin 4 on. That's what he based everything of what he would then teach to the next generation, including his own niece and nephew, his two nephews and his niece. In canon now, in The Last Jedi, Luke attempted to do the same thing. He attempted to start a Jedi Academy. But he was having a problem with the Jedi. He did not understand about using emotion to help add fuel to the fire that made him... It was what made him defeat Vader. He sees cutting off Vader's hand as a mistake. As something he should not have done. He should not have done that because that way it weakened his father. Thus, when he picks up Palpatine, throws him over the side... all the electricity that's caused into him, that caused him to die, but upon that, he was already weakened by the fact that he'd been defeated and basically been mutilated by his own kid. So Luke very much started to do this begrudgingly. He begrudgingly created the new Jedi Academy because he felt like he had no other choice. I don't think he did, not to him anyway. And you know, he goes off and he starts training Ben Solo, the only kid at this point of Han and Leia, which is fine. Luke then has a moment. Luke has a moment of... he senses the dark side in the young Ben Solo. And he has a moment in his head where he's trying to calculate if eliminating the threat will... eliminating part of the biggest point of the threat will eliminate the whole threat. This would be not uncommonly like when Mace Windu, or when Anakin has Dooku, hands chopped off, lightsabers to his throat, the whole "do it" line, and then Mace Windu, having deflected back all this lightsaber, all this force lightning back into Palpatine's face, destroying the mask that he'd been using to look like Palpatine, and turns him back into Sidious and everything else. And Windu's exact line is, he has control of the Senate and the courts. He's too dangerous to be kept alive. And it's the same thing with Palpatine. You know, it's like, you did well. He was too dangerous to be kept alive. That is how I think Luke is progressing. He is thinking the same way as Windu did, and as Palpatine did. The idea is that he believed that Ben might be too dangerous to be allowed to live, because of his connection to the dark side, and because he also represents the only bloodline that could possibly be linked to Darth Vader besides Luke. So he goes to strike Ben down. He has that moment, he turns on his lightsaber, he looks at the lightsaber and goes, shit, I shouldn't be doing this. Turns off the lightsaber, goes to put it away, unmistakably suddenly realising that Ben has just woken up and seen the fact that his uncle is basically brandishing a lightsaber about to kill him. Ben freaks out, brings everything down on top of him, and decides from this point on he needs to learn a bit more about the Force from another source of energy, as well as using that knowledge to become something more than what he was. In other words, to destroy, get rid of the past, kill it if you have to. Those are his words. He doesn't want to keep remembering all these things. He's destroying things in order so he doesn't have to deal with the emotional torment that he's feeling. Luke, thus far, after the Jedi Temple is destroyed and the students are either killed or have been turned into the Knights of Ren by Kylo and by Snoke, Luke then goes into self-imposed exile, taking an X-Wing, flying out, just dumping it and living on this island with the first Jedi Temple, and he lives there constantly in mourning and in self-exile and just in hatred of everything that he's done, like self-inflicted pain. Because he doesn't understand why this had to happen, and more importantly, he knows that he is the bigger threat because he had this thought. He had the thought of he could be too dangerous to be kept alive. And I think that is one of the things that he might have also had. He might have had a recollection, or he might have had possibly a conversation with a ghost Yoda some time ago about how the Jedi were so concerned with having to eliminate the threat that they couldn't see the real threat right in front of their faces. And maybe Luke had the same thought as old Master Windu had, and decided that eliminating the threat might have worked, and then he looks at himself and suddenly realises, by doing this, I am putting myself on the same path that the Jedi of the Republic did. I am putting myself on this pedestal, and I am also setting myself up for the biggest fall. Because that's what happened. The Jedi of the Old Republic, the Jedi Council, the Jedi Order, they put themselves up on a pedestal by fighting the Clone Wars, by fighting alongside the Troopers, everything. They put themselves up on pedestals, made themselves legends within their own thoughts, and their hubris and their pride is what led to their destruction and their downfall. It is what led Palpatine to do all these things. And it's no wonder that Palpatine, because there's a point somewhere, I believe, where Palpatine thinks he's doing the right thing. He thinks the Sith should be in charge of the galaxy because the Jedi don't understand. He knows that he has to be manipulative and cruel in order to get all these things. But Palpatine isn't, to his own mind, evil. He thinks of himself as one of the true caretakers of the Force, because the Force is what he believes it to be. And it's the same thing as to what, the Jedi would believe the Force to be. The Luke that we meet in The Last Jedi is a Luke who has basically gone, holy crap, everyone's a manipulative prick. The Jedi, the Sith, they're as bad as each other. I might as well just disappear, leave myself in exile, you're done. He also knows that Snoke was still running around, but he ultimately believed that because of the Republic connection, he might have just thought to himself, Leia can handle it. Leia will take him down, Leia will get Ben back, and everything else that happened, Ben might just kill Snoke and be done with it. There'll be no Jedi, there'll be no Sith, he'll just move on with his life. And he was wrong. And I think for a lot of these things, and that's just one of the points about Last Jedi. Another thing is, for example, when Leia pulls herself back into the ship, right? Luke must have taught her something before he disappeared, before he went to train. It can't have been that long while he was training before the whole thing went down with Ben and everything else. It might have been that he ultimately taught Leia a little something while she was dealing with everything else. And it's entirely possible that he taught her the very basics. In other words, to basically say, if you ever find yourself in a life-threatening situation, you can bring up something to protect you and stop either blaster fire, or if the Sith do end up returning at some point, a lightsaber will be deflected off of the Force ball or won't hurt you as much. And I think that's the bigger point. It's got nothing to do with, oh look, if Leia's a Jedi, how come she never trained? Blah, blah, blah. Leia isn't supposed to be a Jedi. She's supposed to be the politician, but she's still the child of Vader. She's still the daughter of Skywalker. Still a child of one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful, Force wielder of the entirety of canon of Star Wars. She would have, at some point, had some inherent ability. Once she had realized what she was, like the fact that she was related to one of the most powerful Force wielders in the universe, in the galaxy, it wouldn't surprise me that she'd go to Luke and say, look, is there anything you can, like, help me with? I don't want to become a Jedi, because if I do that, then I will be accused of playing favourites in the world. But I want to help build a new republic, and I can't do that from the Jedi perspective. Because if you're going to take a more passive view on the rebuilding of the Republic, why should I? Why should I be forced to why should I become a Jedi? To remove myself from politics? That would just be stupid. I work better as a politician. And Luke's like, fine, I'll teach you the few basic Force tricks. I'll show you how to keep yourself protected, you know, to pull yourself back in from danger should anything bad happen to you in a ship. Anything like that. She's able to use the Force because it is a combination of Luke's very basic teachings to her, which I think he did before he took the other kids away, and Ben, and went to train them as Jedi. Also the fact that I'm pretty sure that at some point along the line she had a connection. She had a connection not to Yoda or to Ben, but to her father. And it's entirely possible that Leia has a connection to her father that we can never now know about, because now, unfortunately, Carrie Fisher is dead. Rest her soul. I could go in a whole bunch of rants about what makes The Last Jedi good. I could go into a whole rant about trying to explain everything. And I don't want to seem like a whinger. But guys, Star Wars was taken over by Disney. We cannot, I repeat, cannot always be satisfied with what has been put out. Did I like Rebels when it first came out? No, because I thought it was just a rip-off of Vader running around, aka the Grand Inquisitor. Then I discover, of course, that Vader's going, oh yeah, no, you know, I've taken and corrupted a whole bunch of these people and now they all work for me as basically killing Jedi. I thought, okay, fair enough. Within Rebels, we get not excessively dark storylines, but we do get an incredibly cool concept around that. For example, the Bendu. The Bendu himself is one of the more mysterious characters that I actually kind of enjoy, and I enjoy watching. He was this gigantic thing that just sort of turned up and was like, oh yeah, you know, you're Jedi, you're Sith, I don't care. You know, I'm just stood here, I'm in the middle. I work for the Force, I don't work for you, screw you. That was cool, to have a character in there that represented both the light and the dark, and he just didn't care. He doesn't fight in the wars, he never has, he never will. I think it was cool to have, I didn't like it at first, but I liked the idea of there being a Padawan that was still alive after Order 66. Now granted, he's going to have to die or disappear or lose his lightsaber or something. At some point in Rebels, in the last few episodes of Rebels, something is going to happen that will eradicate the two Force wielders from that group. Because unless they bring them into the new trilogy, i.e. have Rey suddenly run into an older Ezra Bridger or an older Kanan or whatever, that would be cool, but at the same time, not something that we need. Because, honestly, the only way those guys could have made a difference would have been when fighting the Empire. And I think them fighting the First Order just wouldn't have worked as well. I just don't think it would have. I think my biggest problem, my reason for doing this video was because I wanted to sort of show these people that, the people that really hate Last Jedi, who want it eliminated, there are still some good points. I love the Legends continuity. I absolutely despise the fact that Disney got rid of the last of the books and got rid of the comics and everything else. But you have to understand, the things that are there are great. There is a Darth Vader comic book about how Palpatine might possibly be trying to get rid of Vader, and what does Vader do? He doesn't sit around and cry about it. He grabs his lightsaber, he wanders out there, and he kicks some ass. He beats the crap out of the Emperor for once or twice in the comics, all because of things that the Emperor has done that have finally come back to haunt him. There are things being done in these comics that are so well done, and I know everyone's talking about, Disney's taken over, it's all corporate, Disney's just trying to make money. Yes, they are, but you don't have to let that define you don't have to let it define the product. For the love of criminy, I love comics, I love movies, I love the TV shows that have been brought out. Do I like Rebels completely? No, there are problems with Rebels. I don't always like Rebels, but at the same time, it did focus on a few really cool things. And it wasn't without some cool points. I know Thrawn wasn't exactly handled with the greatest of care by Disney, but he also wasn't butchered. He can't have been. Last Jedi has given us some good things. Force Awakens gave us some great things. Rebels gave us some great things. Do I know what's coming in the future? No. Will I always like Star Wars? Yes. Now you may think that I'm just some pathetic little naive guy who just tries to see the good in everything, but that's what a Star Wars fan does. Any decent Star Wars fan recognises the flaws. Any fan of anything. You know what? Screw it. Doesn't even have to be Star Wars. Any fan of anything, if you're a big enough fan, the problems will never bother you to the point of never wanting to watch it. I will own Last Jedi when it comes out on DVD. Just as I will watch Episode 9 when it comes out. Just like I will watch this solo film. This solo Origins movie. I'm going to watch it come hell or high water. And I'm going to enjoy it. I'm not saying that if you don't like it then you're not a true Star Wars fan. But I'm just saying that if you allow the anger that you feel about a direction that certain things are going, that allows you to shape your feelings about a franchise and about where it goes, then honestly you might miss out on something really amazing and something really cool. For example, I loved season 3. Like, especially the opening scene with Ezra. The kid, the main character kid in this show, he's grown up in this show. What's one of the first things he does using the Force properly within that season of the show? He wanders up, takes control of a pilot's mind of an AT-AT, and proceeds to make him murder other stormtroopers and then commit suicide off the side of a cliff. That was dark. It was. It was fucking dark. And I just want you guys to just be good. I want you to just remember that Star Wars is good. May the Force be with you. Randomfish out.